What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with the first PGA preview of the 2019 season. It's the Sentry Tournament of Champions, which has, sneakily jumped up on us here. It's already time for a new golf season. But before we jump into that, just letting you guys know, I have plans for an awesome 2019. I've got a bunch of content ideas. I'm really kind of doubling down and tripling down on this YouTube channel, hoping to make as many videos as possible in 2019. I have already started off with a one and done strategy video. If you play one and done PGA pools, check that out. That video is already out. And I've got a lot more different types of contests that we're going to be talking about, and some different ways for us to follow along this PGA season, and even outside of PGA into other sports as well. So I hope you enjoy that. Additionally, I have rebuilt a lot of the PGA tools for this year. I've really tried to put a lot more thought and emphasis into the flow of these tools and what makes it easy to make lineup decisions. Some of those have already been rolled out, which you'll see today, and some I'm still working on. Just putting the finishing touches on them, and you'll see them rolled out probably before the Sony Open next week, or shortly after that. So keep an eye out for it. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into this and talk about this week at Kapalua. So remember, this is our Tournament of Champions. You must have won on tour last year to get the invite to play here at Kapalua. It's the Plantation course. It's the same course that they've used for long enough for us to use it for great course history, 10 plus years, I believe. And there's 37 players who got invited to play. 3 are not going to be showing up. It's Tiger, Justin Rose, and Phil Mickelson will not be playing. It's 4 rounds for everybody. There is no cut, so we're going to go back to kind of our standard, hey, we're looking for birdie makers. And, let's be honest, it's a new year. We don't know how often these guys have been playing, if they've been playing well, unless they've been playing on the Euro Tour. Like, we haven't seen much of them recently, so we're kind of giving everybody a blank slate off of the top. And what I'm showing you here is the top part of the rebuilt PGA cheat sheet. And we'll start on the far right-hand corner because I think it's worth noting. Here are all of the best players in terms of DraftKings scoring at Kapalua in their careers. So this is all time. So you'll see Jon Rahm leads the way with an average of 114 DraftKings points, but that's only one start. That was last year. Dustin Johnson averaging 102 points. That's over 8 starts. So this is just a really good visual for you to be able to come through here and see who has actually played this tournament before. Obviously, because you have to earn your way into it, not everyone has played it before. Not everyone plays it every year. And, this chart should be able to show you that. And then in the middle, underneath who's hot, this is your opportunity to come through and look to see in any time frame that you want, the average DraftKings points for any of these players. So I have it defaulted to 10 years, the entire history that I have, right? So you can see Rory McIlroy's got 220 starts in that time frame, but we might not want the last 10 years. Let's look at something like the last 6 months. And remember, this is 6 months, so this goes back to July 1st. There weren't a lot of golf tournaments after September of last year, so this is really an awkward type of time frame. But you'll see, and someone who's going to be very popular this week leading the way is Cameron Champ, 89 DraftKings points in his last 6 starts. A lot of that was a swing season, so he got his win in the swing season. He's already a DFS darling. And the guys who are in second and third on this list, Tiger Woods and Justin Rose, are actually not teeing it up this week. So this just gives you an idea as far as sample size and guys who have been playing well. I think Woodland is an interesting play here. And then Keegan as well, 80 points is a top, 7 or 8 as far as who's hot. All right. Now there's a new tool here. This is the Converging Trends, I don't know what you want to call it, graph, visual, chart, whatever you want to call this here. And I'll actually zoom back out so you can see it a little bit better. I get a lot of questions about, hey, Rick, what are you looking for just to kind of start on PGA? And I think the 2 easiest things and the 2 most logical things to look at are who's playing well right now and who has played well at this course in the past. Okay. There's a million other ways that you can break down PGA, but let's start with those two. And what I did is I built a graph to take every player in the field and show you their recent form, which is the last 6 months in this case, and their course history here at Kapalua. Again, this week it is not tournament history, it is actual course history. So if this has moved around, which it hasn't, you would see the differences there. But this is actual course history. And what you want to find are guys who are to the top right-hand side of this chart. So DJ, jumps off at the top because he's been so great recently and has great course history. If you go to someone like Jon Rahm, who has even better course history, but knowing that's only one start, that makes a lot of sense. As far as value goes, you get Patrick Reed and Paul Casey. And actually, I can change this back here real quick so we can see how many starts these guys actually have. So Patrick Reed has 4 starts to earn his 105 DraftKings points per start at Kapalua. Also one of the, he's probably middle of the pack in terms of recent form, but you can kind of see how this chart helps you identify a little bit of the converging trends. And then we have the actual cheat sheet, which is what you would normally see when you come down here. So this is your projections, which we'll talk about a lot more this year, recent form, and tournament history. If you follow along, you know that I hate projections generally, especially for a volatile sport like the PGA Tour. It's pretty ridiculous to say, hey, Dustin Johnson's going to score 81 DraftKings points this week. I think that's pretty ridiculous, but you guys ask for it, okay? I understand the reasoning of wanting to be able to compare players against each other. So what I've done is I've added in 2 additional columns, a floor chart and a ceiling column, So really what you have here is basically the range of outcomes within one standard distribution for each player. So meaning, 66% of their outcomes are going to fall between their floor and their ceiling. A standard deviation on either side of their average. So if you look at some of these players, you'll notice some things here. So Tiger's, his projection, if he would have played, so this is when he was in the field, was 83 points. His floor of 62 is a lot higher than Rahm and Koepka, for example, who are down in the 40s. But his ceiling is not nearly as high as Thomas or Koepka. So that's the reason I would like to do it like this is because to give you a median projection or a mean projection, whatever the industry is giving you, does not take into account anything that has to do with like the format of tournament that you're playing, your risk tolerance, anything like that. So this is kind of a little bit of a better start. So really, if you're looking for cash games, you want guys with really high floors, like Gary Woodland, Webb Simpson. Those would be high floor players. Rory McIlroy. Guys with high ceiling players. Bryson DeChambeau, Cameron Champ, actually the highest ceiling on this slate. Probably because of a small sample size. But you see what I'm getting at here, right? So there's a little bit of everything when you break down the projections this way. All right. Enough of the data. I'll give you a little narrative and talk about the guys that I actually like this week. It's very early in the week, but it's already pretty obvious where some of the ownership is collecting here. Okay. So, lots of talk about Jon Rahm at $9,800. Lots of talk about, Bryson at 87 and then Patrick Reed at 82. And then also Leishman down here at 7,700. And then when you get down even further, and you get to Snedeker at 74, like those guys are going to pull in a ton of ownership this week. And it's all pretty valid, but the guys that I'm most interested in it, to be a little bit off the beaten track, JT and Koepka here would be awesome, right? Okay. So JT has won this before. He won it 2 years ago. He won it in 2016. DJ is the chalk that everyone's going to be talking about because he's the, most expensive player on the slate. He's got the elite course history. You can drop down for a little bit before you get to Rahm and get Thomas and Brooks Koepka in a little bit of that sandwich pricing before everyone just goes out and gets Rahm at $9,800. Additionally, Rory at 96 is probably the guy that I'll be playing the most. To me, when Rory's on, he's the best player in the world. And we started to see flashes of that right down the stretch for him. A seventh at the Tour Championship, a fifth at the BMW, and a 12th in the final. That was this three event stretch in the playoffs for him. He's never played here at Kapalua, which I bet you keeps a lot of the ownership off of him, right? People love a good course history. Rory's not always that popular. He kind of falls into a weird pricing this week. You could get him at a probably pretty low number. I'm going to be all over it. He's got just as much upside as any of these other guys on the slate. I do also love Bryson. This is probably the most narrative we'll ever get this week, is because we haven't seen these guys playing, in some of them in months, right? So this is a pretty big narrative week. But a lot of guys treat this like it's just a vacation, right? They bring their families, they go out there, they play 4 rounds, they collect their paycheck, and they move on. Guys who don't do that are good for our purposes. And Bryson doesn't feel like that type of player. He lives, eats, breathes golf. He's grinding on every shot, on every hole, and every read. He's the type of guy that I want to play in DraftKings or bet on, because I know I'm going to get 100% effort out of him 100% of the time. So again, a little bit of a narrative, but I think there's valid reasons. And by the way, he was the most scorching hot player on the face of the earth for the last year. So no problem having any of him. Reed will be popular, and I'll have a lot of him as well. Just elite course history here. I think his price is simply just too low. He should probably be in the mid 9s. He's low 8,000s. That's a pretty good price. And then down here, you start to throw a little bit of darts. So you get someone like, I think, Gary Woodland, who can play with the big boys at only $8,000. He hits it a mile. This is Kapalua, so the ball's going to roll out. You're going to see 400-yard drives this week. Gary Woodland could be a very beneficial to this type of course. And we saw that, a 10th, a 2nd, and a 5th down the stretch to end his season last year. He was playing really well. So if he can keep that going, obviously that gets me pretty pumped up. Let's see here. Sneds will be popular. I think that's fine, but I thought there were some pretty good pivots. Let me see. If you didn't want to play Sneds, I really like Aaron Wise here at $7,500. So he had a 10th and a 15th already in this swing season. If you saw the post he posted on Instagram, the guy put on 30 pounds of muscle in I don't know how long. It's a very short off season. These guys don't have a lot of time to bulk up. He looks like he's the freaking Hulk. It's unbelievable. But a really good stretch for him. And Piercy kind of the same way. Piercy's had a good swing season, but there's not too many guys down here I'd want to touch too much, and I don't think you have to. The pricing's pretty clean, and there's a lot of value in the middle of it that you don't have to go too low here unless you're trying to jam in both DJ and Koepka or something like that. Not sure that that's necessary or how that's actually going to play itself out when we get to creating lineups. All right, and then I'll show you the strokes gained tool real quick here as we kind of finish up, because I think it's worth it. And this is getting a complete revamp. There's parts of this that are staying. There's parts of it that are going away. They're going to go be parts of other tools. So you might not see this exact same tool over the course of the next few weeks. But just to kind of give you an idea, this is using the strokes gain data. And some of the hottest players in this field include Bryson DeChambeau, Cameron Champ, and Billy Horschel, who are all basically averaging 2 strokes gained per round over the course of the last 6 months. Those guys lead, even Webb Simpson, even Rory, even Justin Rose, all those guys, right? They lead everybody. Snedeker in his price range, Aaron Wise is his price range. Again, you're looking for guys who are bottom right of this chart, and that would be Horschel, Champ, and DeChambeau seem a little bit underpriced, under the assumption that these guys are going to continue to play well, which I don't know if that's an assumption that we can make, but you can make your decisions for yourself. This is a tool I really love, the who's hot, who's not, but unfortunately we just haven't had a ton of strokes gain data recently. A lot of the events towards the end of the season, and it's been a couple of months, we don't have strokes gain data. So this is good, not great, but what it shows us is, Billy Horschel continues to play over his career average over the course of, the last 60 days of strokes gain data that we have available. Cameron Champ, obviously up there. The guys that would be struggling would be, Paul Casey, Michael Kim, and Bubba Watson would be some of the guys down towards the bottom. Although I do actually kind of anecdotally like Bubba, you know, he's coming off the quietest, 3-win season a player's ever had. Basically getting no respect. He's played Kapalua a bunch. I actually don't mind him here, despite what this chart says. And then the last thing I'll show you here is the tournament history. So here's your strokes gained data for the tournament. And again, not all of these players are in this tournament. So if you look at this, I just pulled the last 4 years. I didn't want to go back too far, especially because you can't play this every year. I just tried to narrow this down a little bit. But if you're looking for, you know, strokes gained total, Jon Rahm in his 4 rounds last year is the best average strokes gained over the course of anybody in that 4-year stretch. Now, again, he's only done it for 4 rounds. DJ has done it for 12. Okay, so he's at 1.97 strokes gained per round for 12 rounds, which is really, really impressive, and then followed right up by Patrick Reed. So you can see why the ownership is really targeting on these Rahm, DJ, and Patrick Reed areas. And then outside of that, once you start to scroll down a little bit and you're looking for guys who are in this field, you know, the next ones that pop up are Leishman, but again, that's a 1-year sample size. You get Snedeker with a 2-year sample size, which is great, 1.22 strokes gained per round. And then I think even a really, really sneaky play, and I might wait until some of the ownership stuff comes out, maybe later in the week. But Jason Day, completely forgotten. Really good track record here. Has all the tangibles to win something like this. And I don't think many people are talking about him. So I think that's an opportunity as well. There you go. That is the preview for the Sentry Tournament of Champions. This is just the first of many videos that we're going to be making this year. With your input, please tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below if there's something specific that you're looking for this year. I'm happy to follow up with it. And keep an eye out, you know, the rest of this week and the following weeks for a lot of new tools and a lot of new videos. I'll talk to you guys soon. Best of luck.